Good evening, Albuquerque. Thank you for joining this telephone town hall with Mayor Tim Keller. For those of you who are wondering if you are connected, you are. Right now, your wedding is called listen-only mode, which means that you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. In just a moment, we'll introduce Mayor Keller and other city leaders, and then we will open it up for questions. But first, let me go over a few housekeeping items. Today's event is also bilingual and being interpreted in real time into Spanish. If you'd like to listen in Spanish, press *0 on your phone. Again, to listen in Spanish, press *0 on your phone. It will take about 20 seconds to transfer, so please stay on the line. Por favor, presione la estrella el número 0 y será transferido a la línea en español. Spanish speakers are also encouraged to follow @Alcalde Keller on Twitter. See COVID resources in Spanish at cabq.gov or call 311 and ask for a Spanish speaker for any questions about city services. In any language, if you'd like to ask a question, you can press *3 on your phone and you will be put in line to speak with one of our staff members. Again, to ask a question, press *3 on your phone. Our staff will hop on, take down your name and your question, and then you will return to the town hall. Then, if you hear your name, you'll be live to the entire conference and can ask your question directly to Mayor Keller and city officials. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible, so please press *3 now if you'd like to ask a question. Again, *3 to ask your question of Mayor Keller. Along with Mayor Keller, we also have a number of city leaders joining us today who can speak to some of the specific questions folks in Albuquerque have been asking. On the line with us tonight, we have Director Dr. Shel Sanchez from the Arts and Culture Department, Chief of Police Harold Medina from the Albuquerque Police Department, Director Carol Pierce from our Family and Community Services Department, African American Community Liaison Nicole Rogers from our Office of Equity and Inclusion, and Deputy Director of Policy, Paul Heidel, from our Legal Department. Now, I would like to turn the conversation over to Mayor Tim Keller for some initial remarks. Mayor Keller?
Well, thanks so much, Alicia, and good evening to everyone. Thanks for tuning into our town hall on a very hot and hazy evening in the Duke City. For us, we know that New Mexico continues to reopen, as does Albuquerque, and I know there are a lot of questions about services and programs, as well as, what's up with the summer in terms of fun things to do, and the 4th of July, and also some hot topics that are going on in City Council, from cannabis zoning to compassionate solutions for the unhoused. And so these are all different topics that we can touch on today, depending on your questions. And first, let me, mention that, like many of you, for the past couple of weeks, wherever I go, I'm always wondering, do I have to wear a mask? Is everyone supposed to be wearing a mask? Do we not need masks? And so just want to acknowledge the transition and the ambiguity that I think a lot of us are feeling right now. But do want to remind folks that, it's still a requirement for some places, and especially private businesses and private property can certainly require a mask. That's okay. And important places like the airport and healthcare facilities, and of course, under the health order, those who aren't vaccinated are supposed to voluntarily wear masks as well. Now, with that said, there's a bunch of places that you don't need to wear a mask anymore if you've been vaccinated, and so that's pretty much everywhere except for if a sign or notice is posted and you need to adhere to those regulations. And obvious ones, again, are healthcare areas. Also, right now, a lot of the children's programming and school-related type activities are requiring masks. So it's always good to have one on you just in case. Now, I'm going to pause a little bit here and there just to let our Spanish translation catch up. But I do want folks to know that we've made a lot of adjustments. And since the beginning of the pandemic, we continue to adjust as the situation evolves. And there are some uncertainties still around us, including when will we totally move out of restrictions. And I want to encourage everyone, we are getting close to the state's goal of 60% vaccination rate. We're at about 57. So we're only 3% away. And so if we can all convince 3% of our community to get that vaccination in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be able to hit our goal in time for July 4th to move out of all the color coding restrictions and so forth. So I know that would be awesome if we could do that. It is a credit to everyone who individually has been helping with the pandemic and helping keep each other safe. Of course, also to our first responders and healthcare workers and all our essential workers who've been just doing unbelievable work over the last year and a half. So we're almost there, but I do want to encourage everyone because we got to get that 3% and we're so close. And so for information on that, it's all over the internet and you can call 311 or you can look at the CABQ website. But there are free vaccination clinics, dozens in Albuquerque, and we're going to be having even more this week and next week. So I think one thing that is certain right now is that Albuquerque continues to have your back. Whether you needed childcare during the pandemic, and we provided emergency childcare in our community centers, or rental assistance, which is still available, or utility assistance, or it's vaccines even delivered to your home, or even in many cases our public transit system, which continue to run, or other aspects of our safety net, which we kept open even during the pandemic, even things like business permitting, so you could keep your business open, and if you were a restaurant, you could adjust to outside dining and so forth. So we will continue to do that as our city services and facilities continue to evolve and adapt as we build for recovery this summer. So there's much to share, but what I'll do is pause now and we might take a few questions and we'll see where the discussion goes. And so, Alicia, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And a reminder for those of you who are joining us, if you'd like to ask Mayor Keller a question, simply push *3 on your phone. *3 on that phone if you want to ask Mayor Keller a question. If you'd like to listen in Spanish, press *0 on your phone. Again, to listen in Spanish, press *0 on your phone. It will take about 20 seconds to transfer, so please stay on the line. Por favor, presione la estrella el número 0 y será transferido a la línea en español. Spanish speakers are also encouraged to follow @Alcalde Keller on Twitter. See COVID resources in Spanish at cabq.gov or call 311 and ask for a Spanish speaker for any questions about city services. Again, if you're just joining us and you'd like to ask Mayor Keller and city officials a question, please press *3. Mayor, you alluded to this just a little bit, but to start off with, we've had some questions pouring in about summer, and our summer break is upon us and restrictions are easing. We're seeing many questions about activities for families. So our first question is, what kinds of activities does the city offer that my family can safely participate in, even now with restrictions still in place?
Well, thanks so much for that question, and I know Alicia has some personal interest in this, as do I. All of us with kids are always looking during the summer for fun things to do. And fortunately, Albuquerque has lots of options for families right now, even under the existing regulations. So first and foremost, we have a wide range of summer programming at all our community centers and multi-gen centers. These are back again this year, but we're able to handle many more children than we did last year. And so we're almost at full capacity, but not quite, due to the turquoise regulations. But there's lots of room left. So check the CABQ website or look at, you can call 311, but basically any community center near you has programming available, in many cases for the entire day, all week, all through the summer. We also have our parks and open spaces, which have been available throughout the pandemic and continue to be. And many of our parks have been rehabbed. There's a lot of new playgrounds with shade structures. We spent a lot of time during the pandemic investing in our community. And that also means our biopark, our zoo and our bugarium and everything in between is open, and the aquarium as well, and the botanic gardens, our museums, our libraries. So check them out as you would have 2 years ago. They're all available and they all have also kids programming. And we're also starting to get back to wonderful events. Part of Albuquerque, part of what I remember and love growing up here is all the great things that happen during the summer in our community that are all wonderful outside activities. And we're really kicking off this summer, this weekend, with our Juneteenth celebration. And we're going to hear more about that in a little bit, but it's going to be an amazing festival on Civic Plaza, and it's going to be actually over the entire weekend, and that's going to be followed up by Summerfest. Summerfest is back. It's a little different, a little scaled down, but it is going to be back, and so we'll hear a little bit about that as we get through kind of the second half of July, and August is when those events are going to happen. And fireworks are back. So we have a wonderful program set up where you're going to be able to do some things at the Balloon Fiesta with fireworks, but also all around town. Folks might remember last year for fireworks, we shot them off kind of from the 4 quadrants of the city from parks and golf courses, and people really love that, so we're going to do that again this year. But those are really for you to enjoy from your street, your sidewalk, from your driveway, from your porch. They're not in-person events. So if there's questions and such, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. The Balloon Fiesta will have limited in-person availability, and we'll be talking about that in detail. The end of this week is when all of those dates and details will come out. Okay, so in general, the city is back open, and we're still following COVID-safe practices and, of course, taking precautions when they're appropriate, whether it's sanitizing or time ticketing, things of this nature. But the events really vary depending on the facility and the service. And so check with our website or 311 for details on that. And we're very excited to bring back Summerfest and 4th of July fireworks. And so let's talk about the first event of the summer, which is going to be Juneteenth. And for that, let me hand it off to our African American liaison, Nicole Rogers. Nicole?
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Albuquerque. My name is Nicole Rogers, and I am the African American Community and Business Liaison. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a special time for the African American community, where we remember the fact that slaves in Texas found out that they were free 2 years later, actually 901 days after the Emancipation Proclamation. So because we weren't free during the 4th of July, Juneteenth, June 19th, is our Independence Day. And so we have amazing things planned at Civic Plaza, as Mayor said, amazing activities for the kids. We have Explora on Saturday from 3 to 6 with STEM kits. We have United coming out with soccer balls to do different drills with the kids. We have a book giveaway. Of course, the splash pad is open so you can cool down in the heat. We're going to have a lot of local performers, and I'm most excited about the almost 90-plus Black-owned businesses, artisans, and vendors that are there who haven't had a chance to sell their goods during this lockdown we call COVID. So I'm really excited for the community to come out to celebrate with us, just like we do on 4th of July, and really just have some unity, some good food, some amazing music, and really just have a great time with each other this weekend. So more information, you can go to www.nmjuneteenth.com. You can also go to cabq.com to find out more. But we're really excited to see you all this weekend. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks so much. Going to be a wonderful event this weekend, and we hope to see you there. Okay, I know some questions are coming in, and we'll get to them. As a reminder for folks, on average in general, we have about 10,000 people on the line, which you can imagine is pretty much what we usually have, and that's a lot. So we obviously can't get to every question, but we're going to kind of take them based on topics so that we make sure and hit as many topics that people are asking about. So with that, let's go to Alicia for our question.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you, Nicole. And just as a reminder to repeat that website for Juneteenth, it's nm.juneteenth.com. And for those of you who are just joining our telephone town hall, please press *3 to ask Mayor Keller and city officials your question. If you'd like to listen in Spanish, press *0 on your phone. Again, to listen in Spanish, *0 on your phone. It'll take about 20 seconds to transfer, so please stay on the line. Por favor, presione la estrella y el número 0 y será transferido a la línea en español. So, Mayor, our next question comes from Amy. Amy, you're live with Mayor Keller.
Hello, Mayor Keller. This is your friend Amy, and constituent, obviously. Hey, I'm calling about the issue both of trash generally and trash related to homelessness and the amount of byproducts that come from that lifestyle, and how we are dealing with that directly with the city.
Thank you so much, Amy. And question front and center, unfortunately, right, for so many of us all around the city. And so let me touch on a couple of aspects to that question. Firstly, we have seen a dramatic rise in homelessness all around the country and in challenges around our unsheltered community. And Albuquerque has the same challenges, right? So we're seeing it here and we're seeing it around the country. And so what we are working on is addressing this in a number of ways. And want to remind everyone that during the pandemic, we actually had about 900 unsheltered in hotels around the city that at the time, right, were closed to the public. And so we're working on what to do as those hotels need to reopen and we have to transition those folks, hopefully, to housing. So we do have our city's Family and Community Services Director on the line, and Carol Pierce can fill in the gaps here in just a moment. But a couple of things that we're working on. Number one, we do have, for example, porta potties in different locations around the city to try and deal with some of the challenges with respect to our unsheltered and the need for sanitary restrooms. We're continuing that program. That was a COVID program, but we're going to keep it going this summer. We continue to also keep our West Side Emergency Shelter open 24/7. We opened it 24/7 during the pandemic, and as we can see all around us, there's still certainly a need for that, and there is room out there. So there also is a shuttle that picks up folks at different areas that they can go on for that. Now, a little bit around some of the challenges that can show up around trash and things like this. I would encourage everyone to call it into 311. We still have a program that goes, and it's just sort of like a large item pickup, but it's a special item pickup when there are just these mounds or piles of trash that are left behind. And our crews actually do track it and will get to it. So if you call it in, sometimes there's about a 3-day backlog, but right now we are able to keep up at least with the calls in. Now, I know there's probably a lot more than calls, but at least call it in, and then we can start, triaging it. So let me do this, though. There's a lot more to the unsheltered question. So let me hand it over to Carol Pierce to talk more about that issue. Go ahead, Carol.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. I appreciate the question. Specifically for the porta potties, about 19 porta potties were set up during COVID, and we do believe this is really important in our community for our unhoused neighbors. As Mayor Keller mentioned, during the peak of the pandemic, we were housing about 900 unsheltered individuals. Now, moving forward, we've been able to get a lot of folks into housing, and because folks are getting vaccinated, they are able to be in a more congregate setting. But we will continue to have one of our, what we refer to them as wellness hotels, open for the foreseeable future. And that is primarily with families and children, with about 240 people that, families and children, that we're assisting getting into housing, and during the school year making sure those kids were connected to laptops and getting connected to Title I and APS. I also want to add that I believe the caller mentioned about the items that many times unhoused neighbors have. Sometimes it's in carts and other things. We do have a program that we operate with Steelbridge, and we were talking about it today, and I double-checked that we had openings there. And so what that program is if we have unhoused neighbors with a lot of items and they want to get on the shuttle that the mayor mentioned to get to one of our shelters, they can safely store their items there. and we had about 20 slots available. There's about 50 bins there, and we have 20 slots available. So we really have our outreach workers and all of our nonprofits that work with neighbors to have people be aware of that service so they can put their belongings there while they access service and be assured that their items are safe. Thank you, Mayor Keller, and thank you to the caller.
Thanks so much, Carol. And a few other items just to mention on this. We do have housing vouchers available through our community partners. And, not everyone is ready for that, or not everyone always wants it, but I do want folks to know that City Council has funded those vouchers, and we have them available, and we continue to know that that's actually, one of the best ways to address unsheltered situations is with that housing voucher. But we do have to look at solutions to every aspect of the challenge around being unsheltered. And so I do want to mention the Gateway Center, which is, of course, it is the largest investment in homelessness and unsheltered community in the history of New Mexico, which sounds like a huge deal. And in some ways it is, because the voters passed $14 million for us to do this. But in other ways, it just shows how little, frankly, we've been investing in the past. And so it's time we do this. And so we're working on creating a health hub at the Gibson Medical Center, but that will include a place where folks can get help 24/7 with behavioral health, with mental health, and we hope to see dozens of providers out there when it's ready. Now, we've got a ways to go to bring that online, but I think that will no doubt be a game changer and hopefully lift hundreds of folks into housing through the different initiatives at the Health Hub. So that is a big change that we're looking forward to. And the last one that I'd mention is also, in some ways, how we deal with sometimes, obviously, the unsheltered community is dealing with addiction, behavioral health, mental health issues. And so this is related to our Albuquerque Community Safety Department, which we are also bringing online this fall. This is a third response to 911, so that when you call 911, instead of just getting police or fire, there will be a third option that may be dispatched, and it'll be trained professionals to deal with mental health and behavioral health situations. And also, in many cases, this often involves a social worker being dispatched, right, instead of law enforcement. And so this hopefully is a way to get people the right response at the right time. And also freeing up our EMTs to handle situations of medical emergencies, and freeing up our law enforcement folks to focus on fighting crime. And so that program also did get wonderfully a big substantial amount of funding through our budget cycle, which I'm just sharing that because now we can actually hire a couple of dozen social workers to get this off the ground. We do have the leadership in place already, which is wonderful. So we have our kind of core team already working at the city, and now they're ready to scale up and actually start taking calls. And so that's what we're looking forward to in the fall and in the winter. Okay, with that, we'll go back to Alicia.
Thank you so much, Mayor Keller, and those questions are pouring in. Again, to ask Mayor Keller a question, just press *3. Our next question comes from Raphael. Raphael, you're live with Mayor Keller.
Hi, yes, thank you for having me on. I just have a question. I was just curious to know that the city of Albuquerque swimming pools are only open for reservation that only has 75% capacity. I was just wondering, is that going to be a temporary thing, or will we eventually be open just for walk-ins like normally?
Sure, great question. And our pools are, if folks don't know this, they're very popular. I know you do. And so it is something actually we get a lot of questions about because they fill up, right, with this current reservation system. So where we're at is this. Right now, we do require reservations, but we have lap swim available at 75% capacity, and we wonderfully have rec swim available on the weekends. And right, that's for the kids and the families. But you do have to sign up for a 2-hour window. And so you can do all of that at cabq.gov/rec /pools. And to the second part of your question, when are we just going to be open? Well, the answer is I can't wait, with everyone else. But right now we're looking hopefully in July, and we're just waiting on the state public health order. And as I mentioned earlier, the indication is that when we hit 60%, that these will be restrictions will be lifted. So the good news is our team is ready at the city, and as soon as those restrictions are lifted, give us a couple of days and it'll be 100% open without having all the reservations and that kind of thing. Now, I do want to mention that sometimes demand is so high for our swimming pools, we might have to do reservations just so people aren't showing up and there's literally no lane to swim in. So, as a reminder, if we are seeing that our swim lanes are maxed out, we'll go back to a sign-up system, which we've had to do before. But again, we would only do that if we're maxed out. But we know certain times of the day do get super busy, and so we'll have to do that just for space reasons. Lastly, I want to mention our splash pads. These are all coming online as well. In fact, most of them should be open already. I know the one on Civic Plaza is. And so, again, these are for everyone of all ages, but they tend to be little kids especially. And so whether it's at Cesar Chavez or on Civic Plaza, our splash pads are a big hit with folks, and so we're going to make sure that we get those open. If they're not, most of them I think are open already, but if they're not, they will be shortly. Okay, with that, we'll go to another question. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Again, to ask Mayor Keller a question, just press *3. Next question is Jose. Jose, you're going to be live with Mayor Keller.
Hello, Mayor Keller. I'm Jose Sanchez. My question is in regards to downtown Albuquerque and safety this summer. What is APD's plan for, increasing safety during the summertime when violence escalates?
Thank you, Jose. And, this is also a really especially important question as we come out of the pandemic. And, I remember going downtown when I was in college and so forth, and I saw the city try a lot of different things. Some worked and some didn't. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to our chief of police in a minute to explain what we're doing now. But I mentioned that story because we are continuing to experiment with different techniques to keep people safe. And most recently, I was down there for Art Walk I think it was last month on a Friday, and it was packed. I mean, there were, the entire street was full of people, and actually it was wonderful. People were excited and happy and literally dancing in the streets. This was right when the first round of restrictions had been lifted. But it became, there were so many people, right? We had to block off the streets. We had, I know in the last Art Walk too, we looked at the kind of Gold Street and around Bosey Brothers because that was getting too crowded. And so the plan continues to evolve, but I think that's a good thing. And so for the latest on what we're working on, go ahead, Chief Medina.
Good evening, Albuquerque. Hello, Jose. This is Chief Medina with the Albuquerque Police Department. And we have several operations and resources that we're devoting to downtown to ensure everybody's safety. And for example, this past weekend, I believe they gave 175 moving citations, 9 cites for modified exhaust, 6 DWIs, and 4 fights were responded to. What we're doing is the commander downtown, Commander Josh Brown, has worked to make sure that we close the streets at a proper time and have that balance of ensuring that people are able to access downtown for dinner, get out there to those locations. But right around 8 o'clock on days other than Art Walk, they're going to close down Central right around 8th Street all the way down to 2nd Street. They'll divert the traffic onto the side streets, and we've adjusted the hours of our tactical section, so we have extra tactical officers downtown and available. We also have our traffic officers that are being adjusted and working operations in this area. And their whole goal is to have a good presence and to ensure the safety of individuals downtown. On the night of Art Walk, they are closing Central and restricting access to some of the feeder streets, especially those off of Gold, like the mayor said, much earlier in the day. They're going to be closing then right about 5 o'clock on those nights. We're going to be doing this on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and we're starting off with a 60-day plan, which is going to be all of June and July. As the mayor said, it's always evolving. If we need to extend this into August and beyond, we're prepared to do that. But we have several goals. Number one, have a presence. Number two, control the traffic and the drag racing issues that we've seen around the city. Number three, deal with the exhaust. I mean, there's a lot of complaints from the businesses along Central all the way through Tingley and the Elvado area of just those loud exhausts. And we're issuing those citations when we're able to kind of see if we can't address that problem. So there's a lot of different issues that we're working on in the downtown. We're changing them. If something comes up, we're designating rideshare areas, and we'll be posting more and more information on our social media page as we go forward to ensure that the public knows what our plans are once they're solidified and we see what's working best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Medina and Mayor. We have another question in the public safety vein, so I'm going to stay here for just a second. We have a question from our Spanish-speaking audience from Maria. Maria wants to make sure that she is able to communicate with police when she contacts them. She speaks Spanish only and wanted to see how she can best communicate with APD as a Spanish speaker.
Thank you so much for that question. And we have a couple of programs that we've put in place, you know, as sometimes is the case with city workers, and here in Albuquerque, we do have a number of Spanish speakers, but it certainly is less than half for sure. But we do have some of our officers who are bilingual. But what I want to share with you is, as of around last year, we actually equipped every single officer with a program on their cell phone, basically with there's a local company called Valley Community Interpreters, or VCI. And right now, every officer has a program on their phone. So if they're engaging with someone, they essentially can call VCI, and then VCI will provide translation through that cell phone. And the amazing thing is they're able to do it in many languages. They're obviously equipped to handle lots of volume when it comes to Spanish, but they've got at least a dozen or so languages that they can do that with, which I know is helpful for our refugee community, which is substantial and non-Spanish speakers included. So I think we're in a much, much better place with respect to bilingual communication for APD. And so that program is currently available to every officer out in the field.
Call from VRT.
Thank you so much, Mayor Keller. Chief Medina, did you have anything else to add?
Yes, Alicia. I think, it's important that we're able to communicate with all of the community. And sometimes that communication goes above and beyond just the everyday communication at a call for service. For this reason, we've created what we call the Ambassador Program. The Ambassador Program is assigning officers to different groups within the community based on race, religion, and sexual orientation. And our goal is not only to be able to communicate with somebody on the day of the call, but our goal is also to start learning the culture of these different groups to ensure that we're able to educate our officers better. And so we could also make sure the community knows, we know what their expectation is and they know what to expect from us during certain situations. So we'll continue to grow our ambassador program. These officers are stipend a little bit of extra money for volunteering for this position. And they're also mandated to meet with their different groups that they're working with at least once a month to get concerns. And then they have a meeting personally with me that we discuss different operations or different ways that we could modify or bring training to the police department. So for us, it's above and beyond just being able to communicate. It's about understanding the culture and being able to work with a diverse community such as Albuquerque. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Medina and Mayor. And so, Mayor, we have a lot of questions coming in about cannabis and, recently passed at the state level and how that will look here in Albuquerque. So we had multiple questions come in, so I thought I would just let you know that folks are really interested in knowing what the city is doing now that the new industry is landing here in Albuquerque.
Thank you. And so we have a number of things to touch on this important issue for our city. And I think first and foremost is a reminder that the legislature did essentially legalize cannabis. And so that is happening, and also happening, of course, in Albuquerque. We have a situation where this is, for us, the birth of a new industry. And in any city, that means we have to figure out how it is going to fit in our city with respect to zoning. And I know that might sound like a fairly bland topic to folks, but it's very interesting and it's very important. And based on city ordinances that have to do with something called the IDO, which is the Integrated Development Ordinance that governs zoning in our city, we have to make some decisions every June. And that's just the way it works. The city updates its zoning once a year. So we have to do it this summer to prepare for cannabis. And so that's the process that you see now. And City Council is actually the decider. They are going to have a special meeting on this on Thursday that the public can participate in. And they're looking at a number of aspects to this, which we've also asked them to look at, because the administration eventually has to implement all these. And so the issues kind of are, do we want to have cannabis sales like they do in Trinidad, Colorado, for example, where they're concentrated in that case in their downtown, and that's where all the shops are where you can purchase cannabis? Or do we want to have it more like Durango? And I'm picking, cities near us that hopefully some of you have been to. And Durango has the opposite approach, where they're very spread out and they're very sort of subtle, so that they're kind of around you if you want them, but you don't feel like you're surrounded by cannabis stores, which you do feel certainly in Trinidad. So I believe the Durango model is the way to go, and so that's what we're looking at. And again, that's just making sure that we have a nice spread out system. So cannabis is available in, everywhere in the city, but it's, there's not a gazillion stores in Old Town or in a particular area of town. So what I want to do is hand it off to a lawyer who knows this much better than me, who works with the city, former ACLU attorney, but now our senior policy attorney. And so let's hear some more from him, but just letting folks know that as with all zoning issues, this is really in council's hands, and it's an opportunity for everyone to chime in on what they would like to see this week. And so with more on that, our policy attorney, Paul Heidel. Paul?
Thank you, Mayor. This is Paul Heidel, and as the Mayor said, I am the Deputy Director for Policy at the city, and I have the pleasure of getting to work on some of the new regulations related to cannabis and recreational cannabis. So I just want to set the time frame as well that the Cannabis Regulation Act, which is the state bill, was passed in a special session earlier this year, and then the governor signed this into law in April. And we began in May as a city to put forward some ideas about what regulation and land use could look like around this new industry. And there were several meetings that happened, and the city council really wants to hear from folks who live in Albuquerque about what direction the city should take. And so the mayor mentioned that there is a city council meeting on Thursday, and I just want to let folks know that that will be at 3 o'clock, and there is a process whereby people, if you're interested, can provide public input either in writing or to log on to the Zoom meeting and provide public comment over Zoom. And you can check out more information about not only how to provide the public comment, but also read each of the proposals related to these amendments at cabq.gov/council. So the city has been looking at several issues related to cannabis retail. And first of all, this is an exciting new industry with lots of opportunity, but like all industries, there needs to be smart urban planning around where these facilities will go, how it may impact neighborhoods and traffic, and the city and the administration is very much interested in public input into this process. We're looking at things like protecting historic character of Route 66 and Old Town, but we're also looking at density issues. As the mayor said, the difference between a Trinidad, Colorado with what some folks call the Green Mile, very dense concentration of cannabis facilities, versus what we would prefer, which is something more like Durango, where there's some separation between facilities and there's not this sort of Green Mile situation. We're also looking closely at issues around equity. And equity cuts in two different directions. We don't want to necessarily see an industry located in only disproportionately affect communities of color and historic neighborhoods, but we're also meeting with groups that have ideas for how to promote and encourage full participation in an evolving industry that potentially will have lots of new jobs and new opportunities. So, Mayor, I would just say the main things that we really want to hear from folks on are around density, around equity, how to provide smart urban planning for this new exciting industry. Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you, Paul and Mayor. Like I said, we were getting lots of questions around that issue, so we appreciate the clarification and the ways that people can continue to provide input. If you'd like to ask Mayor Keller, you can just press *3 on your phone. Our next question is coming from Fran. Fran, you're live with Mayor Keller.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'm just interested in the senior centers, if they will be open pretty soon as usual, especially Bear Canyon.
Thank you so much, Fran. And this is such another great example of the joy of reopening. And so our senior centers now all should be open. You can check, sometimes they're limited to programming and sometimes they're not, but they're all going to be totally open similarly as soon as that general public health order is lifted, which we hope will be at the end of the month, and especially if we get that 60% vaccination rate, so very soon. But they're all open right now for programming. So you can call 311 for details on that, and you can also check on the different senior center websites. And that does include Bear Canyon, which is such a fun center. And so there are some, restrictions a little bit around distancing and around the different kinds of activities, and there's still no indoor dining. But again, we hope to bring that back as soon as that state health order is lifted. Of course, we do have meal pickup still outside from 11:30 to 1. And so hope you can make it over to Bear Canyon for some good programming and at least a lunch pickup.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. I know so many people are looking forward to getting back to some of their normal routines and activities, so this is great news, I'm sure, for Fran. Our next question comes from Juanita Maria. Juanita Maria, you're live with Mayor Keller.
Oh, hello, Mayor. Thank you for taking my call. I put in for rental assistance so they can help me. I'm a disabled senior citizen, and I call them like every month, and I put in an application, which was way back in April. I had a little bit of money until COVID hit, and it kind of drained everything. So I'm scared, and I have health issues, and I'm kind of stressed out. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Would you happen to know the time span because I called them today and they said, well, your application is here. Don't worry. How can I be sure what's gonna happen if I get thrown out of my apartment? I wouldn't have nowhere to go.
Juanita, thanks for sharing your experience with us. And there should be some good assistance available. So I'm going to give you a couple of places to look. But number one, the state is running federally funded assistance for rent. And there's lots of money still available in that program. So in your particular case, I want to make sure that we've got you in the right program so that you get the help that you need. So I'm going to mention a couple of things, but at least one should be helpful to you. But for others listening, the place to start is renthelpnm.org. And if you haven't been able to yet, certainly log in and sign up through that site if you haven't already, Juanita. Now, if you're a senior, like in your situation, there actually is a group of folks you can call at the city, and it's related to Fran's call. You can call our Senior Affairs Department. They have a couple of assistants and call takers who shepherd folks who, maybe aren't as good on the internet and so forth and need some extra help. So what I would do for your specific case is call 764-6400 and explain your situation to them, and they should be able to make sure that you're on, all the right lists and so forth. And they can also arrange some home delivery for meals and even repairs at your house. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have a question from our Spanish-speaking audience from Erlinda. Erlinda is wondering about any changes to the biopark, including hours, and if we have any clarification on that with the reopening.
Thanks so much. And the biopark, ever popular. This is one of these two where we're on the cusp of, being able to fully open like we were before, but we're not there yet. So we are technically under the state turquoise level status, which means that it's only 75% open and we still have to do this reservation process. But as I mentioned before, I am expecting in early July to open up the zoo fully. But we've got to get to that 60% vaccination rate. So anyone listening can help us open all of these things by getting a vaccine if you haven't already been vaccinated. And by the way, there are one-shot vaccines available throughout the city, just the one-timer, so you don't have to come back. So, but anyway, information on the biopark you can find, of course, at cabq.gov/biopark. And my family is there every weekend morning, and we sometimes can't go because it fills up. So just want to let folks know that we are aware that we're still maxing out right now on our capacities. But the good news is we can take 75%, of course. So there are, hundreds, actually thousands going every day now to our zoo, which is awesome. But we're not quite, totally open. So you can get the updated information there. And I am reminded we have our Director of Arts and Culture on the phone with us. And Dr. Shel Sanchez can be much more specific and clear than me. So Dr. Sanchez, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. And hello, Albuquerque. And I don't know, Mayor, I feel like sometimes you spend a little bit more time at the zoo with your family than I do now that I have grown children. So yes, we are. I'm really happy that we are now open at the biopark 7 days a week. We were down to 5 days a week there for a little while. So we're back open since Memorial Day, 7 days a week. So that makes it a little bit easier to find a little bit of time. And this summer, we're actually going to add some evening hours at the zoo starting in late July. I think July 24th, we're going to have zoo nights. There'll be live music, not the big concerts of past, but those will be back next year. But we will have live music, and it's really fun to go between 5 and 8. And a lot of the animals that are super sleepy in the afternoons because it's really hot start kind of moving around and getting really active in the evening. So I encourage you to do that. There'll be a series of Friday nights. And then we'll also have some special garden hours at the Botanic Gardens on Thursdays starting in early July. So again, it's a really nice to go in the evenings. We'll have live music kind of sprinkled throughout the Botanic Gardens. And it's just, if you don't want to go for that like 2 p.m. walk in the summer, a 5 or 6 p.m. walk with a family is really beautiful at the Botanic Gardens. So those are just a few things that we've added for the summer, but I encourage you to get that out there in the evenings. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchez, and I'm sure those evening hours are going to be very much appreciated if we keep in these triple digits as we've been seeing over the last several days. So that's exciting to look forward to. Our next caller is Pamela, and Pamela has a question for you, Mayor. Pamela, you're live with the Mayor.
Yeah, Mayor, my name is Pamela Britton, and I want to thank you for your commitment to serve us all. I think you've done an outstanding job. It's been difficult times. I want to also thank you for these virtual town halls, which actually is a good segue into why I called, which has to do with accessibility for people with disabilities. I went and was a delegate in 2016 for the governor and other offices, and found myself needing to go to the ladies' bathroom. I have a care provider, that's my husband. So the bottom line is my husband and I had to go into the women's bathroom because there was not a family or handicap single stall bathroom available at the time. Now, much may have changed since that was 5 years ago, but I'd like to highlight that the city is behind in some of its ADA requirements for accessibility. Some of those fixes are relatively easy. I would be willing to serve as a consultant. I was a CEO for a rehab program in Washington some time ago, and I'm now retired. Again, you may already have an idea of what to move forward, but that's what I'm asking about.
Thank you, Pamela, for that question. And I want to, just first acknowledge how it can be anyone who has, a loved one or a friend or family with a physical disability has these stories all over our town. And I know even myself in these situations, you just don't understand how tough it is, right, until it's either you or someone you're with. And so just want to thank you for your offer to help because we do have a long way to go in our town. And what we are doing is the following. Number one, of course, you probably know this, but anything as of about 10 years ago that we build has to be ADA compliant, even if we rehab it. And so that's been going on for some time, but you do see us, very slowly working on this issue. But everything that is, if you look back, probably 95, or maybe it was 96 and newer, has much better accessibility and so forth. But there's obviously, like 90% of our city isn't that new. So this is a big issue. So what we're doing is as we go through all of our renovations, even if it's very light renovations like, paint and fixtures and things like this, ADA is always on that list. So we are going through our different facilities and doing that. And I want to highlight a few. For example, the zoo, which we were just talking about. One of the things we did during the pandemic is we said, let's finally fix all the ADA issues at the zoo because there were no people there too. And so we got that done. We also shored up a lot of challenges, even at things like Isotopes Park. So we're trying to prioritize the venues that are used the most as well. So that's kind of how we rank the to-do items. But we're also recommitting to do it in neighborhoods. And so if you look at just in the last few years, we did ADA compliance in Trumbull neighborhood, in Parkland Hills, in Kirtland Addition. We just announced last week that we're going to be doing Wells Park And so we are now rolling through Albuquerque neighborhood by neighborhood and updating all the ADA challenges with respect to curbing and so forth. So those are some of the things that we're doing, but I love that you specifically asked too on how you can help. And we could really use your help. There's actually a advisory board for the city, the ADA Act Advisory Council. And just last week, my team mentioned that we needed some more people to serve on that. And it's actually a very strong and powerful board. So I'll just ask you directly. You can email or contact information that has been shared, but we'd love to have you serve on that board. We need some fresh faces and members on that board to help us continue to do this work. And others who are listening, there are a lot of vacancies on boards actually right now. You can see all of them at cabq.gov/boards, and you can sign up for that. So we'd love your help actually on that advisory council. So with that too, I would also just mention that we have an Office of Civil Rights, and part of that is disability rights. And so that information is also available on our city website, but they also field a lot of complaints and help us prioritize where we're going next. So feel free to reach out to that office as well, and thanks so much for your question.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And next, I'd like to go to Joseph. Joseph, you're live with Mayor Keller.
Well, thank you for taking my call, Mayor. I just wanted to ask you, what can I do to help? Because you guys do a wonderful job in so many ways. I'm retired. I've been staying home. I'm fully vaccinated. But I'm anxious to get out of the house and do some good. I would like to be a part of the solution. So what can I do to help you do your job better?
Wow, Joseph, that is such a wonderfully giving question. And so thank you for that. And it's also just refreshing. So it's just great to hear that you're willing to give back, just given where you're at in your own life. So let me throw out a couple of ideas. One, I do want to reiterate, we have a lot of vacancies on boards and commissions. So you can certainly check out that cabq.gov/boards. And anyone who's interested in an issue, that is a great way to help. And I know it's not the first thing that comes to mind for people, but they take a lot of these boards, take a lot of time. And so it usually takes individuals who don't have a 9-to-5, work schedule. So it really is a good way to help because it's very difficult to find people. But there are some other great ways. The biggest one is to help our fairly extensive volunteer program. And so we have a civic engagement team that does matchmaking, basically. And so you can go to the website, 1abqvolunteers.com, or you can just call 311 and say you'd like to plug into the volunteers program. And the way it works, it's almost like a dating service. We take what you're interested in and your background, and then we match it with the different departments and volunteer opportunities. And so it's a really cool way to help out, and some also with your availability. So, if you want to volunteer at Albuquerque Open Space and help us monitor and do lightweight docenting and storytelling at our open space areas 7 days a week, you can. But you can also do it just Saturday afternoons. So we can accommodate that too. And I also want to mention our Choose One campaign, which is a flavor of this, because one thing you can do, of course, is choose to volunteer, and I mentioned how to do that. But the Choose One campaign is also, if you're interested in a little bit of a second career, even part-time, we have lots and lots of jobs available. And believe it or not, some of our best city employees are kind of in a second career. So they might have retired from one, and they're like, I actually always wanted to help out, looking at bus schedules and optimizing those. Believe it or not, I met someone who does this. And so we have different opportunities available for that. And so that's just one example, but there are dozens of, sort of second career, full-time or part-time that we could use folks' help with. Lastly, just to stay up to date and in touch and spreading the word about the latest with the city is super helpful. And so the simplest thing you could do is sign up for our newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter, and you can sign up for it very easily on the internet. And it actually is something that our team puts a lot of thought into. And believe it or not, like questions about cannabis, questions about homelessness, questions about the senior affairs department, we touch on all of those in our newsletter. So you can sign up for that by calling 311 as well, or by checking out our website at cabq.gov and then just type in newsletter. So those are some great ways to get involved. And I do want to mention, even in the public safety arena, there are ways to volunteer. I mean, we need volunteer chaplains right now at APD. We need folks to help with our records department. We need folks just to man the front desk at our substations. These are all wonderful ways to give back to the community and help each other. And so hopefully one of those will be a good fit for you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate it. And I'd like to invite you, if you'd like to close with any remarks this evening, to go ahead and do so now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in this evening. And we really appreciate some of the folks mentioned. I'm glad people find this helpful. They're something we can continue to do if people continue to want them. And based on our turnout tonight, we've got about 9,000 or so. So continuing to see strong interest in these telephone town halls. So I want to thank everyone first and foremost for caring about Albuquerque, for caring about our city, and for having the thoughtfulness and interest to take time to just participate in this town hall. And I also want to thank everyone who's done everything they could to help us get through the unprecedented pandemic. And now we get to look forward and build for recovery. And so, as always, want to remind everyone, if you didn't get your question answered, give 311 a call. We just checked on their statistics. The average wait time is less than a minute. And there's something like 99% of the calls are answered in less than 2 minutes. So they're pretty good. So give them a chance. And we also look forward to seeing many of you in person, whether it's at our Summerfest or musical events that we're planning in July and August, and even this weekend out on Civic Plaza. So we hope to see you in person at some point soon as well, and wish everyone the best this evening on a beautiful, warm night in the Duke City. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and to all of the City of Albuquerque officials who joined us this evening to provide key information for folks in our city. And thank you to everyone for participating in today's bilingual telephone town hall. Please feel free to visit cabq.gov for the latest information. If you'd like to leave a message for the mayor, or if we didn't get to your question, please remain on the line and you can leave a voicemail in just a moment. This concludes the telephone town hall. Thank you so much for joining us.